They told you your hands were just tools. That was the lie. From the moment you could grip a crayon or reach for your mother's hand, the world began to shape your hands, not as instruments of power, but of obedience. Write neatly. Sit still. Fold them quietly. Raise one only when you've got permission. They trained you to believe your hands existed to follow rules, not to create them. But that's only because they knew something you didn't. Your hands are more than flesh and bone. They're language, they're force, they're power. They don't just reflect what you feel inside, they create it. Ancient cultures knew this. Yogis, mystics, healers, they didn't raise their hands to ask for permission. They raised them to move energy, to command intention, to realign the body and spirit. They understood that the hands don't just participate in the physical world, they shape the unseen. And somewhere along the way, you forgot. Or more accurately, you were made to forget. Before there were books or wires or data, there were hands. Intentional, focused, sacred. The ancients didn't need devices to connect to energy fields. They already had the most advanced tools ever designed, their own hands. These people knew something we're only starting to remember. Your hands aren't metaphorically powerful. They're neurologically, spiritually, and physically wired to shape energy, heal the body, and amplify thought. Look to ancient texts like the Upanishads, the Karandanda Samhita, or the Tantra Shastra. These weren't fantasy books, these were manuals. And buried in them are some of the earliest teachings on mudras, sacred hand gestures used to unlock different states of consciousness. These mudras weren't just symbolic, they were specific. Every finger, every angle, every point of contact had a purpose. Each gesture was a system, a code to shift your internal state and access another layer of energy. Take Gyan Mudra, for example. Thumb to index finger, the rest extended. It's one of the most recognizable gestures in meditation. But it's not just aesthetic. When a yogi forms Gyan Mudra, they're telling the nervous system to calm down. They're signaling clarity to the brain. They're bringing stillness to the mind. But in our world today, we don't use our hands like this. We swipe, we scroll, we grasp. Our hands, which once opened portals, now open apps. And still, the code is there. It's buried underneath the noise, underneath the tech, underneath the endless stream of content and distraction. It's waiting to be remembered. Each mudra has a frequency. Each gesture serves a function. Some calm you, some energize, others ground, focus, or even cleanse. And you don't have to be mystical to feel it. Neuroscience has already caught up. Modern research shows that hand gestures can influence the brain. They light up neural pathways. They shape attention. They activate internal feedback loops that don't just change your mood. They shift your entire physiology. Form affects function. Movement changes thought. The body listens to the hands. This isn't superstition. This is about learning how to use something you've used every day of your life, but never really understood. Your hands are more than limbs. They're conductors. And when you move them unconsciously, they leak energy. But when you move them with presence, they become powerful instruments of transformation. Think about it. There's a reason warriors, monks, and spiritual leaders all used gestures, mudras, hand signs, rituals. Not because they looked cool, because they worked. These gestures weren't decoration. They were function. They channeled energy, influenced hormones, anchored thought in the body. You hear people talk about manifestation like it's just a mental thing. But thought alone doesn't manifest. Thought needs embodiment. Gesture is how thought becomes real. Your hands aren't random. Your fingers aren't meaningless. The space between your palms isn't empty, it's alive. And once you learn to shape that space, you stop waiting for life to give you clarity. You form it. You stop hoping for change. You channel it. Your hands were never meant to be passive. They were meant to create. And every time you move them, whether you realize it or not, you're speaking. You're sending out signals, not with words, but with energy. And someone, is always listening. The body listens. The mind listens. And the field around you? It listens too. Every time you position your hands, whether it's a tight grip, an idle fidget, or an intentional pose, you're broadcasting. It's like a radio signal. But here's the problem. Most people don't even know they're transmitting. They were never taught the language, never taught to listen to the signal their hands are sending out or pulling in. Take a yogi forming a mudra. It's not just a pretty shape, it's not a performance. It's a completed circuit, like plugging a cable into a live outlet. The fingertips become nodes, the current starts flowing, and suddenly, the thoughts in your mind are linked to the energy in your body. That's not poetry. That's electrical reality. Your body is more than biology. It's electricity. Every cell, every nerve, every impulse, powered by subtle currents. Your thoughts ride on voltage. Your emotions pulse like signals. And the hands, they're the regulators. They manage the flow. When you ignore that flow, when your hands move without intention, the result is chaos. Mental fog, emotional turbulence, fatigue, anxiety. That's what misalignment looks like. But when your gestures are aligned with your breath, your intention, your state, everything sharpens. Calm returns. Magnetism rises. You step into flow. That's why every spiritual tradition, every single one, uses the hands in ritual. Prayer hands. Palms facing the sky. A hand placed over the heart. Hands raised in surrender or worship. Look at every sacred practice, from Christianity to Buddhism to Islam to Hinduism. The hands are always involved. Because your hands declare your state before your words ever do. Want to express reverence? Fold them. Want to open yourself to receiving? Lift them, palms up. Want to ground yourself in strength? Face them down. You already do this without realizing. Shake hands? That's peace. Raise your hand? That's intention. Place your hand over your chest and say, I. That's anchoring identity. You inherited the movements, but not the meaning. That's where the power leaks. Because when you scroll for hours, when you fidget under stress, when you clench your fists at every traffic light, you're using the same sacred tools, but unconsciously. And in that unconscious use, you've traded intention for habit. You've turned ancient rituals into modern reactions. And that's not by accident. That's design. See, when your hands are only used for doing, for producing, clicking, tapping, typing, you start to forget they were once used for being, for presence, for power. You've been trained to use your hands for consumption, not connection. Trained to reach, but not receive. To scroll, but not sense. To type, but not transmit. And in that forgetting, your hands became extensions of a system, not of your soul. The ancient sages weren't trying to impress anyone. Their gestures weren't spiritual aesthetics. They were engineers of energy. They knew which finger touched which. They knew that each combination activated different meridians, energy highways that link your physical body to your emotions, your breath, your consciousness. Thumb to ring finger? That awakens prana, the life force. Palms down? That grounds the body into the subconscious. They didn't guess. They knew. Now here's the wild part. Even if you don't believe in any of this, even if you've never stepped foot in a temple, never meditated once, your hands are still talking, still broadcasting, still forming signals, and the circuit is still alive. If you don't direct that energy, someone else already is, because energy doesn't disappear. It gets rerouted, hijacked, absorbed. So if your gestures are unconscious, your power is on autopilot. You're sending out confusion, pulling in distractions, reinforcing patterns that were never really yours. But when you move intentionally, when your hands act from alignment, not habit, something shifts. You become magnetic, resonant, clear. You begin tuning into a current that's ancient, one that's been waiting for you to remember it. Because the circuit? It's always on. The question is, are you finally ready to take control of the signal? There's a reason the number 3 shows up everywhere, in symbols, in teachings, in temples. The Holy Trinity. Mind, body, spirit. The three pyramids of Giza, the triple goddess, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. It's not coincidence, it's not some poetic metaphor, it's a blueprint. The law of three is the foundation of creation. Think of it as the engine of the universe, how anything comes into form, thought, action, energy. You need all three in alignment for true manifestation to happen. And this is where your hands come in again. Because your hands aren't just muscle and bone, they're the tools that bind the three planes together: mental, physical, spiritual. Hermes Trismegistus, thrice great Hermes, wasn't called that for no reason. He was known as the master of the three realms, because power doesn't exist in just one of them. It exists in the resonance between them. When your mind sets a clear intention, your body forms a precise gesture, and your spirit fuels that gesture with presence. That's alignment. That's coherence. That's the recipe for power that's not just conceptual, it's felt. This is why mudras exist, not because someone wanted to look holy, because they work like energetic switches, a thumb pressed to a fingertip. That's not just a shape, it's a command, a signal to the nervous system to shift into a new state. Gesture becomes instruction. Movement becomes message. You're shaping invisible frequencies the way a conductor shapes sound. But the opposite is true too. When your mind is focused on one thing, but your body does another, and your spirit is nowhere in the room, you're scattered, disjointed, and scattered energy is weak. Ever wonder why some people struggle to manifest? It's not because they don't want it enough. It's because their system isn't aligned. Their thoughts say yes, but their breath says no. Their posture says maybe. Their hands say nothing at all. Look around. You'll see it everywhere. People say they're at peace, but their hands twitch with anxiety. They talk about love while gripping their phones like armor. They smile, but their shoulders slump with tension. Their energy betrays them. The universe doesn't respond to what you say. It responds to what you are. And what you are is constantly being broadcast through your gestures, your body language, your hands. When your outer posture contradicts your inner desire, the signal gets scrambled. You pray for clarity with clenched fists. You set goals, but your body holds resistance. You visualize abundance while your hands are literally closed to receiving it. That's why the Hermetic teachings didn't just talk about positive thinking. They talked about congruence, alignment between thought, word, action. And the hands, they were the key to that alignment. Because hands don't lie. They're honest. They're the final checkpoint between what you think and what you do, between intention and embodiment. And when used with awareness, they become bridges. They carry your thought into form. They speak the language of your soul out into the physical world. So let's take an example. You visualize peace. You breathe slowly. You rest your hands in a mudra of openness. In that moment, everything in your system starts responding. The nervous system relaxes. The brain waves shift. Your field, yes, the space around your body, starts to change. That's not mysticism. That's coherence. And coherence is power. Not power over people. Power over fragmentation. Over the doubt and fog and inner noise that keep you spinning in circles. Because the world we live in, it's built to fragment you, to scatter your attention, to exhaust your focus, because scattered people are easier to sell to guide, to control. But an aligned person, they're a different force entirely. They cut through illusion. They manifest faster. They sense what's off before it even shows up. They become sovereign. And the path to that sovereignty doesn't start with some major life overhaul. It starts with something simple. A single choice, what you do with your hands. Most people don't struggle to manifest because they're lazy. They struggle because their energy is incoherent. Their mind is sprinting ahead, chasing goals. But their body is lagging behind, tense and resistant. Their words say one thing, but their actions say another. And right in the middle of that misalignment, their hands, broadcasting signals that cancel out the very things they claim to desire. Look at your day. Every moment you reach for something, your phone, your coffee, your partner, your hands are involved. Every time you speak about your dreams, every time you journal, every time you create or connect, your hands are the first to move. But here's the question. Are those movements intentional or automatic? Because if your hands are acting out of habit, not presence, they're reinforcing the noise. They're looping old patterns. They're leaking your energy. You can't speak your power while your fingers twitch with doubt. You can't embody presence while your hands grip with anxiety. The hands don't just follow thought, they amplify it. They can also distort it, or block it entirely. And most people go through life without ever realizing this. They keep saying affirmations while fidgeting. They meditate while scrolling. They breathe deep, but their hands stay clenched, so the energy never lands. Intention isn't just a thought, it's a frequency. It has to run through every layer of your being, your breath, your posture, your presence, and yes, your hands. That's why the ancients paid such close attention to how things were done. Not just what was done, the placement of the hands during prayer, the shape of the hands during a blessing, the gesture used during offerings or meditation. Every position carried weight. It wasn't about looking spiritual. It was about signaling clearly to the nervous system and to the field around them. Form shapes energy. Movement creates vibration. Posture speaks louder than any affirmation. Try it now. Seriously, try this. Hold your hands open, palms up. Breathe. Notice what happens. There's a softening, a shift. You've entered a receiving state, not metaphorically, literally. Your nervous system feels the openness. Your energy field starts to respond. Now flip your palms down. Feel that. The grounding, the centering, a sense of strength and stability. That's the gesture of creation, of anchoring. Now press your palms together at your heart. Feel the balance, the unity. This posture, Anjali Mudra, is everywhere. Across cultures, across time, it's a universal signal of peace, reverence, alignment. These aren't just gestures, they're energetic codes. When you eat, when you speak, when you touch another human being, your energy flows through your hands first. They're the front lines, the messengers. And when they move unconsciously, they create chaos. Contradiction is chaos. It's what happens when you say you want love, but your body flinches. When you want connection, but your posture says retreat. When you meditate to find clarity but sit guarded and tense. The universe isn't confused. You are. And that confusion tells the field, I'm not ready. So the manifestations stall, the patterns repeat, the desires feel empty. So check yourself, literally. Look down. Where are your hands when you speak about your goals? Are they open? Are they aligned with your words? Or are they performing a different ritual entirely? The body doesn't lie, and the hands, they definitely don't lie. They're the final translator of what you really believe. That's why transformation doesn't begin with a new idea. It begins with embodiment. You can't override your energetic code with words alone. You have to live it. You have to breathe it. You have to gesture it. Because you don't manifest what you want. You manifest what you are. And what you are is constantly being shaped, every moment, by your hands. From the time you were small, you were taught to sit on your hands. Keep them still. Don't reach, don't grab, don't fidget. Fold them politely. Keep them where we can see them, but don't move them too much. Sound familiar? It wasn't about manners, it was about control. Because the truth is, they weren't just training your body, they were training your energy. You weren't just learning how to behave, you were learning how to disconnect from one of your most intuitive tools, your hands. School made it even worse. Sit in straight rows. Keep your hands to yourself. Raise one hand to speak, use the other to take notes. Then later type, tap, sign, submit. Perform. You were never taught to listen with your hands, to feel with them, to channel through them. Instead, You learned to use your hands for output only, productivity, not presence. Then came screens. Technology picked up right where the classroom left off. Your hands stopped shaping energy and started chasing dopamine. Tap, swipe, scroll, repeat. What used to be sacred gestures are now empty loops of stimulation. And the worst part, you don't even realize you're doing it, because that's how habits work. But what's really being lost here isn't just attention, it's touch. Not just physical touch, energetic touch. The sense of connection to your own body, your breath, your presence. Look around. People touch their phones more than they touch each other, more than they touch the earth, more than they touch themselves with awareness. And we wonder why we feel numb, why our bodies feel tired even when we're not doing much, why anxiety creeps in like a silent background hum that never fully goes away. This isn't a mystery, it's disconnection. You were never meant to live in your head alone. Your mind isn't supposed to carry the weight of your entire life. The body was built to help. The hands were built to guide. But here's the dangerous part, for the system anyway. Because when you do reconnect with your energy, you become much harder to control. You stop reaching for false comfort. You stop reacting to every ping, every notification, every whisper of fear. You start noticing the gap between what you feel and what the world is telling you to feel. And that kind of awareness? That's revolutionary. So the system responds by encouraging more noise, more distractions, more numbing, more scrolling, more stress. And your hands, these sacred antennas, fall deeper into unconscious habits. You grip, you clench, you fidget, you refresh, you repeat. You think you're relaxing, but your fingers are still moving. You think you're resting, but your nervous system never stops scanning. Your hands keep sending signals, but they aren't yours. They're just reflexes, scripts, loops, and that creates static. Not just emotionally, energetically. That static clogs your field. It disrupts your intuition. It dulls your ability to feel what's real. You can't hear the wisdom in your body when your hands are shouting for another hit of stimulation. But here's the good news. It's reversible. You weren't born disconnected. You were trained to be. And if it was learned, it can be unlearned. You can reawaken what's been dulled, reclaim what's been dormant. And the first step? It's not dramatic. It's not complicated. It's this. Remember that every gesture is a choice. Every posture is a program. Every touch is a transmission. And the real question is, whose program are you running? Yours, or the one the world handed you? You'll know the moment you bring your hands together, not to text, not to scroll, not to type, but to be still, to feel, to listen. Because in that moment of quiet, the noise starts to fall away, and something ancient, something real, starts to come back online. Your power. Before you ever spoke a single word, your body already had a voice. Long before you learned how to form sentences, your hands were expressing what words could not. You reached out when you wanted closeness. You pulled away when something felt off. You gripped tightly when you were scared. You waved your arms when you were excited. That wasn't just instinct. That was language. A language of energy, of sensation, of intuition. And your hands, they were fluent in it. They knew how to speak without needing to explain. They knew how to communicate safety, curiosity, fear, and joy long before your mind had a vocabulary. But over time, that language was silenced. It was overwritten by expectations, social rules, cultural scripts. You were taught to listen outward instead of inward. Taught to wait for permission before you moved. Taught to measure your worth by how much you produced, not by how deeply you were present. And so now, most people live their lives entirely in their heads, trying to think their way through problems their bodies already know how to solve. They chase clarity with logic, while their nervous system is screaming for attention. But here's the truth. The body whispers. The hands whisper. And if you never learn to listen, those whispers start to feel like stress, like discomfort, like anxiety, when in fact, they're trying to guide you. Reconnecting with your hands isn't about looking spiritual. It's not about aesthetics. It's about gaining access to a deeper intelligence that never left you. It was just buried. Because when your hands are tuned back in, you gain access to your energetic dashboard. You begin to feel things before your mind catches up. You sense misalignment before it explodes. You notice truth before it has to be proven. Start small. Notice your hands in quiet moments. What are they doing? Are they restless? Clenched? Cold? Still? Are your fingers curled in or spread open? These are not small things. They're signals. Your nervous system is always talking. Your energy is always moving. Your hands are the translation point. When your palms face up, your system enters a receptive state. When your fingers are tightly interlaced, your body prepares for tension. When you place a hand over your heart and breathe, your body interprets that as safety. These aren't spiritual guesses. These are biological truths wired through generations of memory, ritual, and practice. And when you reconnect with this truth, you begin to reclaim something most people have lost completely: your sensitivity. And no, sensitivity is not weakness. Sensitivity is data. Sensitivity is power. Because the more sensitive you are to your internal energy, the less susceptible you are to external manipulation. You recognize urgency that isn't yours. You sense drama before it drags you in. You feel what's real before the world tells you what to think. You move from inner truth, not outer noise, and your hands are the first to show you the way. We like to think of intuition as some big cosmic download, but often it's just physical, tangible. It shows up in the body, in the breath, in the fingertips. It's the hesitation before you shake a hand that doesn't feel right. It's the sudden warmth in your palms when you speak something real. It's the chill that runs through your fingers when you say something that isn't aligned. That's intuition. It's not abstract. It's felt. Your body knows. Your hands know. You just have to stop overriding them. Because your hands aren't stupid instruments. They're sacred messengers. They carry the stories your voice doesn't know how to tell. They speak the truth your mind is too scared to admit. And when you start listening, really listening, everything starts to change. Clarity returns. Direction follows. And suddenly, the path isn't something you have to find. It's something your body has been trying to show you this whole time. You don't need more advice. You don't need a new app, a new guru, or another 5-step process. What you need is reconnection. Reconnection to what's already inside you. What's been patiently waiting for you to notice. It's not out there. It's right here, in your own 2 hands. You don't need a mountaintop to find clarity. You don't need a monastery, or a mantra, or a robe. You don't need to escape your life. You need to embody it, fully, consciously, fiercely. And that starts with your hands. Every day, whether you know it or not, you're already performing rituals. You wake up and reach for your phone before your breath even lands. You grab caffeine before your body has asked for anything. You scroll like it's second nature, and maybe it is. But rituals don't have to be spiritual to be powerful. They just have to be repeated. And every ritual, whether conscious or not, is training your energy field. It's setting the tone for how your system operates. So, what happens when you flip the switch? When you stop acting from compulsion and start moving with intention? Your energy recalibrates, your presence sharpens, you stop leaking power and you start generating it. And it doesn't take hours of meditation. It doesn't require complex knowledge. All it takes is a few minutes a day, a single breath, a single gesture, one quiet moment to say to yourself, to your field, to the universe, "This is who I am becoming." Ancient mystics and yogis knew this. That's why they didn't just meditate, they used mudras, sacred hand positions paired with breath, intention, and clarity. These weren't superstition, they were circuitry, energetic switches. When done with awareness, they reprogram the energy around you and within you. Let's look at a few. The gesture of receiving. Palms open, fingers relaxed, hands resting on your lap or by your sides. This isn't weakness. It's trust. You're telling your nervous system, it's safe to soften. You're signaling, I am open to what's coming. Most people walk through life clenched, gripping, guarding, resisting. And then they wonder why nothing flows. Open hands don't mean passivity. They mean readiness. They say, I am available. I am aligned. I am clear enough to hold what's meant for me. The gesture of creation. Palms facing downward, resting on your thighs, pressed into a surface, reaching toward the earth. This is grounding. It's structure. When your thoughts are spiraling or your emotions feel scattered, this is your reset. Hands down is not a retreat. It's a reclaiming. It says, I am present. I am steady. I am building something real. You're not lost. You're just unanchored. And this is how you gather yourself again. The gesture of unification. Palms pressed together at the center of your chest. Anjali Mudra. This is found across the globe, in prayer, in greeting, in reverence. Why? Because it works. It's a bridge between left and right, masculine and feminine, logic and emotion. A symbol of wholeness. When your hands meet at your heart, your energy follows. It doesn't just calm you, it integrates you. It pulls you back into center. These gestures are not performance, they're alignment. Even if you don't fully understand why they work, your body does. Your field does. You don't need to master every name, every technique. You just need to start. Start choosing stillness over habit. Start choosing presence over automation. Start using your hands to remember who you actually are beneath the noise, because your energy is not random. It's programmable. And you are the programmer. The world wants you drifting, disconnected, pulled in every direction. But a single gesture done with sincerity, just one, can bring you back. Not to the version of you you've been told to be. To the version of you you've always been. You were never meant to live scattered. You were meant to live directed, magnetic, clear. And it all begins, not tomorrow, not someday, but in the next breath, the next moment, the next choice to bring your hands, your energy, your intention home. Energy is never still. It's always moving, always flowing, always responding to something. And here's what most people don't realize. If you're not the one directing that flow, someone or something else is. Think about it. Every ad you see, every notification, every ping, every digital distraction, that's not random. That's a request for your attention. And your attention is energy. You pay for every distraction in focus. You pay for every scroll with clarity. You pay for every misaligned gesture with the erosion of your own power. But here's the catch. Most of this is happening below the surface. You don't even know you're leaking energy until you're drained, until the anxiety creeps in, until the confusion takes over, until you can't tell which thoughts are yours and which were implanted. That's what happens when your field gets porous. When your gestures are no longer intentional but reactive. Your hands, the most powerful conductors of energy you have, aren't directing anything. They're just responding. Tapping, clicking, swiping, gripping. And that's exactly how the system likes it. Because when your gestures are unconscious, your energy becomes programmable by outside forces. You start reacting to someone else's rhythm, someone else's urgency, someone else's agenda. You think you're choosing, but your movements have already been conditioned. And this is the danger. Not that you'll be controlled by force, but that you'll never notice it happened. But here's the revolution. What if you took your gestures back? What if, every time you opened your hand, you opened your awareness? What if, instead of tapping out of habit, you placed your hand on your chest and breathed, on purpose? What if pressing your palms together became a quiet rebellion? A signal to your system that you're coming home to yourself, because that's what conscious gesture is. It's a declaration. It says, I know who I am. I know what I'm calling in. The field listens. The body listens. The energy responds. But only if you lead. You cannot afford to be passive anymore. We are living in a time where energy is the most valuable currency. where distraction is the greatest weapon, and where clarity is the most powerful revolution. The people who learn to master their state, their attention, their embodiment, they're the ones who shape the future. Everyone else? They get swept up in someone else's storm. Your hands are not neutral. They're either tools of creation or conduits of control. You get to decide which. But doing nothing is still a decision. So ask yourself, how long will you keep leaking your energy into systems that never had your best interest at heart? Because the moment you choose differently, everything shifts. You shape your gesture, you align your action, you act from presence, and that's when time bends. That's when time bends. That's when timelines change. That's when life stops happening to you and starts moving through you. You stop reacting to reality. You start designing it. That shift, it's subtle, it's invisible, but it's real. And it begins with the one thing that's always been with you, your hands. You were told your power was outside you, that if you earned enough, achieved enough, looked good enough, then you'd feel powerful. But that was never power. That was approval in disguise. Real power is internal. It's encoded in your breath, your awareness, your movement, and in your hands. Your hands are where thought becomes action, where energy becomes form, where the unseen becomes seen. They are the final frontier. They are the end of the nervous system, but the beginning of creation. Every word you've spoken, every truth you've held, every dream you've shaped, your hands were there. And they've been trying to remind you this whole time. They are not just limbs, they are instruments, antennas, messengers. And when your thoughts are clear, your heart aligned, your gestures intentional, your hands become radiant with coherence. And coherence is magnetic. It draws in clarity, healing, opportunity, connection, not by accident, but by design. You don't need more rituals, you need presence. You don't need more techniques, you need one gesture, done with complete sincerity. Because when you press your palms together, take one breath with intention, the system responds. The noise quiets, the field shifts. Because your body recognizes what your ego forgot. Gesture is language, ritual is remembrance, and remembrance, that's the beginning of everything. You're not here to escape your life, you're here to embody it. Your hands are the bridge between intention and impact, between energy and action, between the version of you that creates. When you hold your hands open, you don't do nothing. You prepare to receive. When you touch your heart, you don't just comfort yourself. You align. When you move your fingers with awareness, you rewrite your story, gesture, moment by moment. And when you do this consistently, people feel it. They don't need to be told. They remember something in themselves just by watching you. Because you've become the mirror, the signal, the quiet revolution. One conscious act at a time. This isn't just about hands. This is about sovereignty. The return to the part of you that was never broken, never confused, never disconnected. The part of you that already knows how to shape energy, speak truth, and build a life that's fully yours. So if your breath has slowed, if your chest feels lighter, if something inside you has been nodding the entire time, then the remembering has already begun. Take it with you, into your work, into your mornings, into your relationships. Bring your hands back online, not for show, not for performance, but because you remember who you are. And when your gestures match that truth, the world won't just watch, it will respond.